Hey gang, this is Devin. So this video is all about PowerShell modules. So we're going to develop a PowerShell module that allows us to interact with our vCenter installation. Some of the commands that you used interactively are going to be wrapped up in this module. So creating a PowerShell module is not a very straightforward process. So I thought I'd walk through it, uh, and I'll also add some code that you can extend and leverage in the requirements of this milestone. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do, and I've already done it, is you're going to want to install Visual Studio Code. So this is the command that I use to install it. So it installs a snap. And if you don't know what a snap is, it's a self-contained application that you can install on different OSs in terms of Linux. So you can take a look at that. It's got some interesting security implications. So mine's already installed. I'm also, you notice, I'm in PowerShell already. So if I type PWSH, I'd be back in it. So I don't necessarily need to be in it right now. So we're going to create a couple directories just to get us started. So I have a Git installation here, right? So I'm in the middle of my journal, my local Git repository, and I've done this before, so I've backed it up and I'm recreating my code. But it's useful to do this in the context of a Git repo, because then you don't lose stuff. And in your deliverables, I'm going to ask you to show me your GitHub repo to include the code that you write for this milestone. So far so good. Let's move on. So the next step is to create the directory structure that we're going to need to make this happen. So let's do that. So I'm going to create a subdirectory called modules. I'm going to go in there and create yet another directory called 40 utils. Now I'm going to go into that directory. So here I am in a subdirectory of my GitHub repo called modules, and a subdirectory called 40 utils. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually create what's called a module manifest. Let me copy my code. I'm going to paste it in. We'll go over it. So this is how you create a module manifest, and a module manifest just has metadata associated with your module. You know, the functions you want to export, that sort of thing, if you want to get into that level of granularity. So in my case, I'm exporting everything, so it's rather simple. So new module manifest. The path to the file that you want to create, a PSD1, that's a manifest file. Go ahead and throw in your author. So that's my GitHub name. Throw in any company name you want to. It could be Sys480, Champlain College, if you want to. And then the name of the module that you're going to create, PSM1. Now, that won't be created. We'll have to create that later. And then a nice description. So I've run that. Oh, I can't do that because I'm not in PowerShell. I knew there was a reason I was going to stay in PowerShell. So let's run that code again. Okay, so if we look in here, we got this lonely file called 40utils.psd1, and you can look at that later. I'm going to go ahead and touch a file called 40utils.psm1 PowerShell module, so it's going to be an empty file. So let me back up one directory. Actually, I'm going to back up two, and I'll type code, period. So that says open up Visual Studio Code to the current directory. And here we go. So this is the modules directory that I created. Here is the PSD file right there. Has a lot of information in there, to include a GUID, and then the empty PowerShell module. So this is going to contain all our functions. So we're going to create a function. So let's do that. Okay, so this is not a computer science class. You know, you can do this move if you want to, or put it on another line. This facilitates folding, right? All right, cool. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we need this module to be basically auto-loaded whenever we start Visual Studio Code. So let's figure out where we are in terms of our current directory structure. So this is the path that we want to tell Visual Studio Code to read. This file right here, $profile, may or may not exist, right? But certainly the location is expected. And if you were to adjust this file, you could tell PowerShell or Visual Studio Code's instance of PowerShell where your modules are located. So let's do this. Okay, so we have the profile, and what we're going to do now is we're going to adjust the environment such that the new path is reflected. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to say that the current PS module path is equal to the current PS module path plus. So the PS module path is separated by colons, so we have to do this, and then we're gonna paste in the current path, so right there. Two slashes there, that's not good. And so we're going to save this. Then we're going to close PowerShell, or excuse me, Visual Studio Code in its entirety. And then let's open it up from the menu up here.
Are you still recording?
Okay, and so we're here, and let's take a look at our PS module path. As you can see here, our PS module path was appended to the end of that variable. So far so good. What we can do now is we can load this module up. So let's do that. So we're going to import module. 40 utils, and we're gonna use the force parameter. What it does is it says if it's already loaded, go ahead and reload it, because we're going to be doing a lot of code changes. So let's take a look at our PSM1 file, and we'll run this function. And that's basically how a PowerShell module works. So were I you, I'd go ahead and commit this code. Now we're going to do something a little bit more useful. So let me pause my video and get this set up. Okay, back again. So I've written some code. I've also made my 480 banner look a little bit nicer. And you don't have to do this, right? You know, it's nice to have a test function. That's what this one is. I decided to make mine pretty. All right, we're going to create a function called 480 connect, and what it does is it receives a parameter called server. Now, there's different ways to do parameters in PowerShell. I invite you to look at them. You can do validators, things of that nature, but this is the most straightforward and simple. So what's going to happen is we're going to create a variable called con. This represents our connection to vCenter. And we're going to first check to see if we're already connected. So, our Powershell libraries create a variable called global default VI server, and if it's populated, it means we're already connected, right? If for some reason you want to connect to a different server, you would just have to close down Visual Studio Code and start over again. So if a connection exists, let's just output the fact that we're already connected and not bother to authenticate. If we're not connected, we're going to go through the whole process of connect VI server. Now, if the server is wrong or the username password is wrong, we're just going to let vCenter deal with the error, because it's a pretty quick error. It's not multi-line, which gets really annoying. All right, so we save this, and let's give it a test. All right, so let's go ahead and import that module again, right? Because it's changed. And we're going to type, we'll do 40 connect. And we're going to pass in our server. Server is, yours will be different. Could be an IP address too. And it's going to ask you to log in. So I'll do that. And we're logged in. Let's run it again and see what happens if we run it a second time. It says we're already connected. So that's the 40 connect. And just let's test out my banner program. Okay, so the banner is working well. So we can connect to the server. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to illustrate how we might add a JSON file, because what we might want to do is, instead of typing this in directly, is have a configuration file that does that. So let's back out of directory. Oh, I'm in the right place. We're going to create a file called 40 driver. So let's do that. We're going to create another file called 40JSON. Okay, they're both empty, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're gonna at the top of this file, we're going to import and force. Let me find my driver. We're going to import that 40 utils right up top, and then we're going to call the banner function. So when you're done developing this, and your 40 utils function is just like you want it, you can remove this force parameter if you want to. Okay, so the 40 driver seems to work. It calls 40 banner nicely. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a JSON file that allows us to pick parameters, just by virtue of looking at the file. So what does the JSON file look like? So at its simplest, it's just key value pairs, right? So we'll do vCenter server. In my case, it's vCenter.hermione.local. That should do. And what we want to do now is we want to create a function, and it's arguable where you put this, but I'm going to put it in my 40 utils.psm file, because it's really intrinsic to the module itself. The ability to pass in a configuration and get one back again. So let's do that. Let me copy some code over. and I'll go over it. And again, you're welcome to copy this code, at least slow down your video and copy the code, improve it if you want to. So this is what it's going to look like. I have git 40 config. I pass in the path to the configuration file. Probably best to make this a fully qualified path because it won't work depending on where you run the code, right? So if you're not in the directory that has the configuration file, it may not find it. Okay, so here's a little debug message in case things aren't working for you. I'll remove that line because I have confidence. We have a configuration. We're gonna declare it and set it to null. This is my C++ coming back to me, but I'll go ahead and configure it, set it to null. I'm going to test the path to see if the actual file exists. I'm going to read in the file, converting it from JSON into variables, and then I'm going to just pipe a message out to the user, say, hey, I got the file. I'm going to use this configuration. And then I'll write that to the host with, hey, it's green. So green is, hey, it's there. Yellow, not serious, but maybe it already exists, or something of that nature. And I reserve red for errors. All right, so let's grab that configuration, right, and then load it up dynamically. So back to the driver, and we can test this out. We can import that library again. Let's do that. Right, and then let's just test it out. And I'll go ahead and give it a let's see. I'll give it that file. Okay, so we're going to use that. And if I type conf, I should get vCenter servers, vCenter.my.local. So that sort of worked, right? So let's do this. So what directory am I in? Okay. So in my driver, do this. I really like the autocomplete. And now we can try to do the connect, right? See if this works. Yeah, so that seemed to have worked. So our next step is to do something useful with the VMs, like, hey, which VM do you want to perform an operation on? So let me stop my video, and I will copy some code over. All right, let's step through this function. So it's called select VM, and in this one we're going to ask the question right here, get VM. So this is raw PowerShell. Oh, excuse me, get VM. All right. You can also do something like this. And we're going to assume that, right? So we need to pass in the base, and that could be a parameter in your JSON file. In fact, we'll probably add that in just a moment. So we have this function select VM. We pass in the folder that we're interested in, right? So it could be base VM, it could be prod, but it has to be something. This function is only going to return one VM, the one that the user selects. So what happens next? We grab the VM just like we did here, right? and we iterate through them. So for each VM and VMs, we write the VM name, and then we give it an index. Then we ask the user to pick one of those VMs, and we'll see what that looks like in just a second. Now, one thing that I want you to do, right, is to write some sort of validator that makes sure that the index is straightforward. If there's 3 VMs and the user picked VM 712, you need to politely remind the user that they're not making a correct selection. You remind the user what VM they picked, and then you actually return the VM object itself, right? So let's give this a go. I'm going to go ahead and run it outside the driver first. Let's import the module, right? And then we'll do a select VM dash folder base VM. Let's see if this works. It does. So which one do you want to pick? I'll pick, I don't know, 3. Hey, you picked ViOS base, and I'm actually returning that that to the function that called it. So we can now add this to our driver file. We can also add something to our JSON file as well. So let's start with the JSON file, and we'll add. Let's see, what would be a good parameter name? Let me think about this for a second. We need a comma, right? So let's throw a comma in there. We'll call it VM folder. So this is the default folder that we look for stuff in. We'll call it base VM. All right. And then let's pop into the driver. So we've connected, right? So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna run this code, right? All right. Let's give it the correct capitalization. You know, this is my Linux coming through, right? You might do something like this, right? Right host. There's gonna be a little code in your driver, right? When you're customizing the experience for your user, but you know, code that you're gonna reuse all the time, make sure to throw that in your PSM file. Let's see if this works, right? Okay, so I'll pick I don't know, 3, right? Hey, we got ViOS. All right, let's take a look at your milestone and see if there's anything that I'm missing. So I showed you how to do a few things. You already know how to do a full clone and a link clone. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. No, I'm not going to do that. So what are you going to have to do next? So you're going to have to go through the process of prompting the user, or perhaps adding information to the 480 JSON file, prompt for the information required to create a link clone or a full clone. So link clones are required. You got to have a link clone. In order to create a link clone, right? You would have created a excuse me. Let's start over again. So link clones are required. You can go the extra step of making a full clone copy of that if you want to. So some of the parameters you're probably going to want to put up in this PSM1 file are things like this. You'll probably want the default ESXi host. Now, if you had 10 of those, 10 ESXi hosts, this probably wouldn't end up being a parameter, right? So in my case, I'm trying to remember which one it was. It was 192.168.7.11. That's my ESXi host. You might have something like this, default network. for 480 WAN, and so on and so forth. You might have a default data store. At some point when the user runs the link clone code that you write, you're going to want to prompt that user, hey, what VM name do you want, right? And at the end of this, you should be able to have a VM created through your forward utils script, forward utils module that's either a link clone or a full clone and has the name that the user desires. All right, a quick word on academic integrity. So most labs, you sit down, you converse with your contemporary, you work your way through the requirements. With software and software development, it's a little bit different, right? So this is almost like an essay you're writing. Now you can certainly source information that you find out on various internet areas. You can go to Reddit. I would stay away from other students' tech journals. That's really not the source information I want you to find. If you are having issues, debugging, right, and a fellow student comes by and helps you through that process without basically giving you the entire function and code, give that student some credit, right, in your submission. If you find the golden hint out there on the internet, certainly in your source code, indicate where that was. I hope that helps. Good luck in this milestone. Bye.